Now, the attic of my house that I live in now for basically 32 years, what has happened over the years, it evolved from, we originally had a bedroom, which evolved into a what we call a Spitfire bedroom, and that evolved into my model museum. So I don't know what to call this video, the Spitfire Museum, the Spitfire bedroom, but anyway, this is the attic of my house. Warren Walker, about a little over a year ago, suggested I go up and make a video of how it looked. He, of course, got to see it in real life when he visited. And from that day on, we've had some people donate some discs, Len Burrell and, of course, Ray Dory. And we've been able to post something pretty much every Monday of what we have recorded over the years that I've recorded video of the Control Line Stunt event, among other things. And I just wanted to take this opportunity and do a little walk around of the Spitfire bedroom. Let's call it the Spitfire bedroom. And of course it has evolved, and it may evolve into something else soon, I don't know. But what I have, the models, some of the models I flew in competition over my lifetime, and I pretty much was involved in Control Line Stunt the greater part of my life. Now, the first thing is, this originally started out to be a room where people visiting our house, and we had people from all over the world visiting all the time. We needed to have a bedroom. We wound up making this spare room in the attic a bedroom, and little by little, some of my modeling stuff worked up in there. And then when we went to England in the mid-90s, and we pretty much worked with Joe Adamusco and Dave Downey developing the Spitfires, we started collecting Spitfire memorabilia. We eventually had pillows and lanterns and lamps and bed sheets and everything Spitfire oriented. That's how it became known as the Spitfire bedroom. But at some point in time, we started putting, when I retired from active modeling, and I did that on the day my grandson was born, and that's a little over 14 years ago, because he's 14 years old now. So what has happened is I have the models all on display, and it's interesting when somebody comes to the house and they're not a modeler that I can show them this, and let's call it the Spitfire Museum. And most of the time the people look up and they're pretty impressed. Now, one of my favorite stories is of Dave Midgley, who used to stay with us, and actually his family stayed with us many, many times. But Dave was always a good a house guest. When he would be done at the end of his visit, he would strip the bed and put the cover back on, and you would think the bed was not slept in. Well, we had hosted a friend from Ukraine, Sergey Belko. I picked him up in Muncie. Well, I drove him back to my house from Muncie. He stayed with us for 4 or 5 days, and he slept in the bed that Midgley had slept in previously. And at the end of the 4 or 5 days, we were driving him back to JFK, the airport, and with his plane. And Karen mentioned to him, how did he like the bed? Was the bed comfortable? And he said, yeah, the bed was very, very comfortable. But in the Ukraine, we have bed sheets. Well, we had not known that Midgley took the bed sheets off, rolled them up, put them somewhere in the laundry room where we don't keep laundry. We never knew that there were no bed sheets on for the whole time Sergey Belko was with us. So, Sergey, if you ever get to see this, we loved having you as a house guest, and we're sorry that Midgley stole the bed sheets. Absolutely true story. Absolutely true. Now, my involvement with the Spitfires started in the mid-90s, and pretty much is still, it's today, it piques my interest to watch any videos, any war movies, anything involving Spitfires. Joe Adamusco, Dave Downey, and was so instrumental in, first off, doing this design, and Dave Midgley doing the canopies, and I guess the credit I get was shooting the videos of making it and finishing it and everything. But what happened, and I never knew this at the time, this is part of the mystique of the Spitfire Museum. I never knew back in the mid-90s that this is how it would evolve. First off, I never thought I'd get old. And like all of us, I thought I'd be young forever. Well, that part didn't work out as well as I thought. But all the little molds for making the stacks, the mufflers, the the composite landing gear, the canopy detail. There's so many videos out there of doing canopy detail, and I always get good comments when I post one and somebody watches. They say, wow, that was useful information. Now, a lot of the stuff, because Dave Midgley had the machine to mold canopies, he not only molded them for all of the planes, even a 90 Spitfire, but he molded the ones for, the Philly Flyers, for basically everybody. And Dave, I don't even know if to this day he still has the molds or the ability to do that. But anyway, back in the day when we were building Spitfires, we had canopies and they were just perfect. Now, the paintwork on this particular model is all Brodak dope. Absolutely every step of this was on video. And back in the day, a lot of it was on VHS tapes, and nobody ever bothered to record it to discs. Now, the stuff that's on disc, I can very conveniently reload up to a computer, and I gave several people giant stacks of the videos to post online, and of course, that's all been done. But this is the part of it that I really think is significant. It's like if you've watched a football game, this is the fourth quarter. All of the models that I have in my inventory, I treasure these. I've given some away, and I will get into that later. But going up to this room with a cup of coffee, and of course right next to this room is my model railroad room, an 18 by 18 foot O-gauge layout. You can see that on the channel. And I have such memorabilia in this room, things that people have donated, given me. It's hard to describe. But I thought by sharing some of this stuff on this video, you'd get an idea of what I like about the Spitfire bedroom. And one of the truly sad things is every time I come up to the Spitfire room, I am reminded I don't have my A26 model, unfortunately. I had originally thought that at the end of my modeling career, I'd have the 3 twin-engine bombers that I competed with. That was a special time of my life. I relive it in my mind often, and I have so much of it on video. But I got an email from good friend Les McDonald, and he mentioned he had seen my model several times, especially the A26, and he sees them on the video. We both ride motorcycles, by the way. In fact, we have similar motorcycles. And what he mentioned was something I had never thought of. He said, your models look like they're brand new, even though they're X amount of years old. Well, they are in a well-preserved room. The Spitfire room has air conditioning, and of course it has heat. So those models are not like being left in a damp cellar or out in a garage or whatever. And they have stood the test of time, and I'm happy with that. Now, of course, again, I wanted to end my career with 3 twin-engine models, and I wanted the A26, of course, to be one of them. The memories of bringing the A26 out to Brodak's the first time, and I had the T-shirts for this and for all the bombers. I had bought T-shirts, hats, everything. And it was such a really great time. But as you know, you plan these things out in life, and the best laid plans of mice and men really never work out. Not in my life anyway. But what does happen is I do have 2 of the 3 up in the Spitfire room, and I'm so happy for that. But just missing the A26, I'm so glad I have the video of its flying. And I also have many, many nice pictures and things other people have taken pictures and donated them to the cause. But here's the bottom line. Anybody who's a real modeler knows that sometimes it doesn't end well. And this plane, this is the first of 2 crashes. I repaired this. This plane got to fly for another year before I crashed it again. So maybe, as they say in politics or in religion, it just was not meant to be. Of course, if you've ever been up to the room in my house, or even coming over here to run the trains, either way, you see I still have these models on display. And of course, the F7 Tiger Cat is in absolutely pristine condition. Now, we had at the end of one of the competitions at the Nats, I believe it was 06, we had a fun fly, and I had a whole bunch of people fly this model. Everybody seemed to have a great time. And luckily, I do have all of that on video. But what's really important to me now is I have the actual model. Now, For me, this was a very big challenge for one reason. I wanted to make a carbon fiber fuselage, and I made the molds. I'm more than one of them, I know that, before I got it right. And I wanted to have a lot of things about this model were unique. The swept forward hinge line was something challenging I had to work on. And the paintwork, now anybody that knows any paintwork, when it's black, it better be perfect. And doing white ink, this was really, really a labor of love. At this point in time, Les Stemmett was very, very helpful. Dave Midgley, Joe Adamusco. Many of the people would come over and help with the inking, the shading, and we'd always have a pizza party at the end of it. But this was really, none of the lettering on this, nothing is decals. This is all paint. And if you've ever done, like that word Marines, you know what I'm talking about. And there's just no decals went on this model. Now, I dedicated the model to Bob Palmer. There's a long story behind that I'll tell on a separate video, but Bob was very inspirational to me. I always loved the T-Bird and the smoothie, and I had met him at Brodax the 1 or 2 years before this. He oogled my B-25, and we talked for many, many hours about the concepts of a twin-engine plane. This was a take-apart plane, too, making it even more challenging. But in the end, when I made the model and I finished, I look back at the challenge of doing it, and I look back at it right now, in fact, and I think, how did I ever do this? This was just an amazing, amazing amount of work, making the molds for that fuselage. And when I got all finished, this is the thing I remember the most. I got all finished with the first fuselage. I wanted to put the finish on it. It's all carbon fiber. I took the shell, and I tried putting Brodax dope on the shell. And no matter what kind of material I used for fisheye killer, nothing at all killed the fish eyes that come from the way I molded the carbon fiber. There was release agent in there, and you just, no way, molecules of it ruined the finish. And I spent a lot of time figuring out how to get around it. And the way I got around it, and I remember this like it was yesterday, I wound up putting silk span over the carbon fiber and then building a normal finish, and that worked to perfection. And what happened in my lifetime of finishing, I had to, and out of necessity, come up with a lot of workarounds for finishing problems. I've posted virtually all of them on one video or another. But then when my career changed into restoring motorcycles, that information that I learned even building this model was instrumental in letting me do some world-class paintwork. Now, the number 5 has a special significance to me. And I can't, if anybody knows what it is, I don't have to tell the story. We'll leave it at that. But that may be a story for a future video. We'll make it the number 5 video. Most people do know it, though, that have been around control line stunt for a long time. But certain parts of this model, when I flew it the first time, I thought, wow, is this an easy model to fly? This was the easiest of the bombers to fly. It basically flew with almost no trim at all. The engines, the little Rojet engines, were just absolutely just easy as pie to tune. This was, of the 3 bombers, probably the easiest to deal with and the easiest to get ready to go to its introduction out at Brodax, and of course ending at the Nationals at that wonderful fun fly where everybody, including me, and everybody that was standing around basically got to fly it. And by the way, that stuff is all posted already. That whole day of flying at the Nats, I know, is somewhere out there among the people I've given them the discs. And it's just a great memory. And again, to come up here on a late at night, would relax with a cup of coffee up here and just look at the memories that are in the walls. Karen calls it the blood in the walls. Now, if you look at this picture real close, you can see the Tiger Cat has dihedral. Well, it's a Photoshop thing that John Pothier did. He Photoshopped in the dihedral, did a great job. I sent it to Al Raby. Al and I were going back and forth for many, many years, and of course he had the Bearcat, I have the Tiger Cat, and I would always tell him, your planes are not as semi-scale as mine, your dihedral's too much, too little. And when we were building a model, I would constantly tell him, how much dihedral should I put in there, Al? Oh, put this amount. He calculated it out, put this amount. And in the end, I made it a totally straight wing, just the way a normal stunt ship would be. But I never told him that. Then when I brought the model down to Texas and it was in Richard Oliver's shop, we were sitting there looking at it all together and smiling, and Al walked in, he looked at it real close from the nose, looked at it, he said, Wendy, you got the dihedral just right. Remember I told you it was this amount or that amount or how much under the tip or what? And Richard Oliver told him, Al, there's no dihedral. And Al looked at it and said, sure there is. I got a picture home. Wendy showed me the picture. Well, when we got to fly it. Al was there in Texas, one of my 5 trips to Texas, that Lubbock and 4 to Houston. And he saw the model fly. He was really happy. And I got to fly his Bearcat on a really, really windy day. Oh, man, I remember that day. And this was just flying this model. The day we got to fly at the Nats for the finals, the top 20 day, I think it was raining or it was windy or something. I don't remember. But I remember thinking that fun flight that we had at the end, I'll remember that on the day I die. Now, of all the memories I have of the Spitfires, and all of them, basically every one of them, they were all excellent flying planes. And I think the consummate ultimate one was, of course, the 90 Spitfire. It had dihedral. Joe Adamusco and I believe Dave Downey did so much excellent aerodynamic work on that. And it was my job when we worked on the project to come up with the fuselage, the canopies, and some of the other stuff. And I decided at the end of it, the paintwork, the Squadron 41 paintwork, I thought was just going to be I had several. I had 3 already that had camo jobs, including the I-beam Spitfire. But this one I wanted to be just a little bit different. And I remember thinking, wow, every part of this paintwork, those roundels, Joe and I used to laugh about it whenever we would be talking about making roundels. It looks so easy. If you're off a pen line when you lay out the tape, it looks horrible. If you do it with patterns, yeah, you can be closer, but boy, it had better be perfect. Now, all of the ink work, all of the shading, all of the panel lines. And again, I used to have so much fun with Al. And he would send me a picture of his plane, and I would tell him, oh, and I believe he's the first one that ever did all this shading and everything. I don't know, maybe it was somebody else. It doesn't matter. But when I would do my plan, and I would say, Al, mine are just better than yours. They're just more accurate, more this, more that. And it was so much fun because he was serious about it. And we had so much fun. When I went to his house and we walked around his modeling collection, he gave me one of his P-51s, the Mustangs. And I looked at his paintwork. He looked at my paintwork. I think in his heart of hearts, he knew mine was a little better. But as a modeler, you could never admit that. The little stacks in the front. At one time, I had a drawer full of rubber mold stacks to make those stacks. And I'd make so many of them for other people. I bet there's 100 of them out in the modeling world. Now, one of the things I did, and you could keep this in mind if you would do something similar. This is the ceiling of the room. I'm laying on my back here. I wanted to show something that I thought would be worthwhile. I had painted, first off, when we bought the house, I sheetrocked the whole attic. And right away painted it light blue, thinking at some point in time I'm going to want to hang a model on the ceiling. And it's nice if it's light blue. It looks like the plane's flying in the sky. Well, I had no idea it was going to become the Spitfire bedroom. And by the way, making that 5-blade prop, the molds for it, making several of them. Talk about challenging stuff. This is the Seafire. Sliding canopy. Thank you to Keith Drossel. Gave me some heads-up ways to do that, and I've managed to figure out how to have a canopy that you could slide open or slide shut. It would fly either way. The cannons. Making the cannons. I remember that. Oh, man. These are labor of love models. These are not things you just do casually. But of course, and the spinners. Those are molded carbon fiber spinners, too. It truly was, and this is in the mid-90s. this really was a labor of love. Now, another thing that I do not have in the Spitfire bedroom is, of course, the Testarossa. And I want to explain the story, how this happened. There's a fellow in the town next to us that had a red Testarossa. And every time I'd go by it, I'd look and say, wow, I like that. I love those scoops on the side. And at the time, I thought, wow, I could make a motorcycle Ferrari, and I made two of them. This is the red one on the right, the blue one on the left. So I did. But I wanted to make two model plane Ferraris. And this took a lot of ingenuity. Les Demet was working in my cellar at the time, and he put in countless hours of making sketches and plans and ideas, and we used a lot of them. The scooping in the front, I remember how many sketches we made. Oh my God, it was unbelievable. And he was instrumental in designing a lot of this stuff, and and in the end, I thought the model was beautiful. And John Cafaro was so helpful with this. He sent me Ferrari stickers and Ferrari t-shirts and Ferrari shirts, emblems. I still have them around the house. But one thing, and I have it up in the Spitfire room, from the Ferrari days, I think it's priceless. And these came from John Cafaro. Thank you again. They are very accurate models. Everything, the doors open, things that's got ignition wires. It's just absolutely highly detailed. And of course, they're Ferraris. So what happened, that there was a time of maybe 4 or 5 years, every time I saw a Ferrari, I went and took pictures of it. When we went to England, I got this radio and a bunch of tapes. Now, the tapes are of actual broadcasts from 1940, in the 40s, when London was being bombed. So I thought, because it was a Spitfire bedroom at one time, that would be a cool thing to have. I got this little N-gauge train. I don't remember who it came from, but I never let it go. I treasure it. And here's another thing, another one of the Ferrari models. This one is a Testarossa, and boy, we use this model, believe it or not. We were using this just for ideas of how to do the back end of the plane, the front end, and where to put the emblems and how to do this and that. But even the wheels, if you look at the pictures or the videos that's still around of the Testarossa model, even the wheels, I made what amount to be little hubcaps for the wheels that are in wheel pants. The little Ferrari emblems. There's just 100 little stories. Now, what's nice about having a room in your house like the Spitfire room, all of this memorabilia, every time you go up there, every time you have guests over the house, I can play that radio, and it's like World War II is going on. I have this picture when Karen and I were both younger, of course. It's full of memorabilia. It's full of things you would think, when you're younger in life, you don't think these things are going to be the pride of the fleet. And as you get older, you realize these are priceless. That little train is priceless. Everything's priceless. Now, I had Roger Karp, the editor of Classic Toy Trains, when I finished my layout, or I thought it was finished. He came with his partner. They spent the whole day taking pictures for this magazine. This is the magazine it's featured in. And what happened, it's a funny little story. The day we took the pictures, Mike Costello, another model airplane friend, we had his trains on the layout. So his trains appear on in the magazine, even though that magazine is how many years old now? But anyway, memorabilia, collectible things. There's certain things in your life, if you're 30 or 40 years old, don't throw everything away. Someday that stuff may be priceless. A priceless thing, when we first bought the house, this big doll came from India. Karen she went to a class how to make dolls. They were making porcelain dolls. She has a collection in the house of about 200 dolls. She collects dolls. This was the pride of her fleet. And this doll, if you count the sequins, you start on 1 square inch of her dress. Somebody in India spent a lot of time doing that. It's really, really nice. So this, again, is one of the things. The Spitfire room, it's evolved to now where it's actually a Spitfire memory room, I should call it. And it's so nice when somebody is able to visit here. somebody has a I don't know, memory of these things when they were younger, it's wonderful. One of the models not in the collection anymore, I gave it to Thomas Luciano as a gift, was the Big Job. I know Thomas is still active and enjoys showing it off at contests or whatever part it plays in his collection. Thomas, and thank you for your help over the years. And we used to fly the Big Job. I can't imagine having more fun than this. I was getting ready for VSC. I only went to one VSC in my life. I loved it. It was a great time. Rich Jacobone donated the box. We were so happy to go. This was a really cool thing. We went to the Nationals with the plane, and Frank McMillan had a Big Job, and he won the event. I believe I got fifth. Maybe not. And Billy Sargent has the I-beam Spitfire now in his collection. So I just think there's no room for any more models up there. I'm glad they live outside the Spitfire bedroom in other people's collections. I have saved probably a half a dozen or so trophies that have some meaning to me. And the Concourse Awards, of course, because I don't have the models anymore. I don't have the Miss Ashley model. And some of them that they were just very memorable days of my life. Back in the time, the early time of the Spitfires, when Joe and I would get together on a regular basis at Middlesex or the Circle Burners, and the time that I owned the air coupe, and we would fly model planes and then run down to the airport and jump in the air coupe and fly over New York City. George Venturini's picture, he oil painted this, and he was quite a talented artist. He painted that from the real model. There is a real Tuskegee Airman B-25. We modeled this after the paint job. And having it in the room with the real B-25. And by the way, for anybody that doesn't notice, I have a B-25 flying on a control line circle on my model railroad. And Carlos Serra did that little mechanism for me using a VCR motor. And that was really something special. Again, Carlos, thank you. And all of the people that have donated things that I have in my collection here. And some of these, like the trophies, yes, they bring back great memories. And there's a special day in your life when you won this award or that award. The 20-point perfect airplane. That's definitely one of them. And it's just, I don't know how to say it. If you're a younger person and you have these days in your life that are worth remembering, take something and put it aside so when you get old. Now, I'm 80 years old right now. When you get to be 80 years old, these bring back great memories. All these Walker fly-offs with all the Spitfires and everything, there's memories here. And sometimes I forget them, and all of a sudden I look at the picture and I go, oh, I know what year that is. I know what, oh, he had the Spitfire hat, the Spitfire shirt, or people and the sad thing is some of the people in the videos and some of the people in the pictures are no longer with us. And so I always think all the video I shot years ago, all the pictures I took, they do have some value beside in my memory anyway. Anyway, having all this stuff up in a room, whenever somebody comes to visit, it's a joy explaining to them how I just consider myself to be one of the luckiest people that ever lived, to have had the life in model aviation that I had, and all of the fun, being a newsletter editor, and getting various awards from various groups and trophies and whatever. All of that aside, though, the biggest trophy of all is going up to that Spitfire room, and especially late at night, maybe 10 minutes before I go to bed, and looking around and saying, wow, I'm always so impressed with the good, having a room in your house that you can store stuff in and keep it on display. And I understand a little bit, probably Howard Hughes had this idea about the Spruce Goose. These are not like the Spruce Goose, but the memories of them, I don't know. And I probably forgot more than half of it. But the memories and some of these challenging things that Midgley and I did in modeling and with Les Demet's help and many other people, Joe Adamusco, Dave Downey, the list, John DeTavio, the list could go on forever. And of course, making it that the friends you make along the way, the people you rub elbows with, the people you compete against, to me, it's a priceless thing. And I don't know people that don't have a passion like modeling, or more than one passion. I don't know how different our life is. And the final thing, of course, I have all of the concourse awards hanging in one room, right in the Spitfire room. And sometime I look at them and I thank every person, even that clock. The clock, by the way, is a concourse award that I donated. So that is the prop was not available that year. I donated that clock. So a few final thoughts. George Waters used some extra parts and parts that I made for his A26. Had a very successful model there. And I enjoyed seeing it at Brodax and seeing that the parts went to good use. And he made I thought the paint job on this was pretty cool in flight. It's all on a separate video, by the way, for anybody interested. Now, since the time Warren Walker suggested I do a tour of the Spitfire bedroom, and that was maybe a year and a half ago, we've had a lot of great memories. And I've tried to get a variety of stuff out on video through this channel. But remember, this channel also has paint work, painting motorcycles, riding motorcycles. There's a variety of things, world travel, trips to France, trips to Russia, trips to Canada. And Bob Palmer, hey Bob, I really thought there was a time when I lived and died by thinking the original Thunderbird, the original one, was the coolest model in the world when I was younger. And Joe Adamusco, I can't say enough about his craftsmanship, workmanship, and great friendship. Joe, I'm in awe of some of the models you've made, and thank you for a lifetime of friendship. Just couldn't be better. I enjoyed every minute of it. And of course, Dave Midgley, who I can't even make a list of how many things he contributed to my life and my enjoyment of modeling and his friendship. And just so everybody knows, he is officially, like me, a grandpa now. So I don't know, Dave. I guess we're getting old. So that was the Spitfire bedroom here. And maybe a year or two from now, it'll evolve into something else. It's been evolving since the mid-90s. And I hope you enjoyed this little visit. Almost as good as being here. But if you're ever in the area, let me know and you can visit in real time. And thanks to everyone for supporting the channel, and thanks everyone for watching.